Hello, this is Shawn O'Connor with Stratus Prep, and we are so excited to be here today with our Beat the GMAT friends for the Write Like an Expert series on Tuck. Tuck is one of my favorite schools to work with clients on because it is such a unique school with a really distinctive culture. And if you don't capture that culture, you're not going to be successful in gaining admission to Tuck. So basically, what we're going to do today is I'm going to walk you through some thoughts that I have about Tuck, and then at the conclusion I'll be happy to take your questions, which you can just type into the questions box in your panel, and we'll go from there. All right. So for those of you who don't know me and haven't seen me on Beat the GMAT before, my name is Shawn O'Connor. I am the founder and CEO of Stratus Prep, and since 2006, Stratus Prep has been helping students from all around the world get into the best business schools, including Tuck. I did my MBA at Harvard, where I also did my JD, and was at the top of the HBS class. I had the 780 on the GMAT. I graduated from Georgetown University for my undergraduate. I have over a decade of admissions counseling experience, and I previously worked with McKinsey, Lehman Brothers, etc. I'm also the author of The Launching Pad, and The Launching Pad is a weekly column or a bi-weekly column on Forbes. On Fridays I cover business school admissions, and on Tuesdays I cover entrepreneurship. So I'd love to hear your thoughts and see you on the Launching Pad whenever you are perusing the net. As you may know, Stratus Prep and our team of experts regularly contribute to a number of publications. So I'm a regular columnist for both Forbes and U.S. News and World Report. Our company has also been featured in the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg Businessweek, CNN Money, Fortune, Financial Times, among many others. And so that's why we're so excited to be here with Beat the GMAT for today's webinar about Tuck. And these are just a few of the places that our clients come to us from. So you can see technology companies like Google and Microsoft, consulting companies like McKinsey and Booz and BCG and Bain, the leading banks like JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs, private equity, BlackRock, Blackstone, etc. And we also work with a lot of folks from the nonprofit world, so Teach for America, City Year, etc. All right, so this is our agenda for today's presentation. First, we're going to talk about the basics. What are the Tuck essay prompts, and what do you need to do with them? And then what I'm going to do is go into some analysis of what Tuck is really looking for. And then finally, number 3, I'm going to talk about how you should go about executing on your strategy for Tuck. What specifically should be your plan for tackling the essays and application process for Tuck this year? Okay, so as many of you know, for the 2013-2014 admission season, there are 3 required essays, okay, and you are encouraged to keep them under 500 words. There's 1 optional essay, which we'll talk about, and then a reapplicant essay for those of you who have applied before. So the essay prompts. Essay number 1, why is an MBA a critical next step towards your short and long-term goals? Why is Tuck the best fit for you and your goals, and why are you the best fit for Tuck? The most important 2 words in this prompt are best fit, and you notice that it appears there twice. Unlike a lot of schools, Kellogg, for example, who just want to hear that they are the best fit for you, and that's a test to make sure that you're actually going to come to the school if you're admitted. What Tuck really wants, because they have such a small class size and it's such an intimate community in Hanover, New Hampshire, is that they want to see that you are the best fit for them and they are the best fit for you. They really, really value that you fit into the community. And it is critically important, for example, that you do a class visit at Tuck. At HBS, it doesn't really matter if you do a class visit. At Tuck, it is absolutely critical. If you don't go and visit and get to know the community, you're not going to be admitted to Tuck. Okay, so that should be incorporated into your answer here, that as a result of having visited, you know that Tuck is a great fit for you and that you would be a great fit for Tuck. So breaking this down, there are basically 3 parts of this question. Okay, there's what are your short and long-term goals, so you should answer that, and you should create what I call the MBA bridge, which is building off of your past experience. You can't throw away your past experience. Building off of your past experience, okay, what will Tuck give you in order to get you to the short-term goal, and then how will the short-term goal get you to the long-term goal? Okay, so that's how you want to think about this question. It's you have some prior experiences that you bring to the table. Tuck is going to provide some really vital additional strengths. And then you combine those two things to get to your short-term goal, which it has to be believable that you could actually get this job coming straight out of Tuck. One of the biggest mistakes that people make with the short-term goal is that they're not giving a short-term goal that's actually actionable, actually possible when they would graduate. And then the long-term goal should be aspirational. Okay, it should be aspirational, because if the long-term goal is not aspirational, then why do they need to give you an MBA from one of these top programs? You also want to have a clear and actionable plan. So when folks work with us, we go through a whole process of introspection and brainstorming and outlining before we actually start writing the essays. And the reason for that is to ensure that you are tactically acting on a well-developed strategy. You've got to demonstrate how Tuck specifically will help you obtain your intermediate and later your long-term goals. What should you not do? You should not say that you want to just stay in your same position, go back to your same company, maybe get a promotion. That's not going to excite Tuck in particular. Also, though, you don't want to go to the other extreme, which is what we call a double switch or a double switcher, which is where you are at the same time trying to change both industry and function. So let's say you used to be in consumer marketing. So you worked for General Mills and you were doing consumer marketing. And now you want to go and do private equity investing in finance. Well, you are changing both your function from marketing to finance and your industry from consumer to financial services. That is too much, too rapid of a switch. A better thing to do would say I want to move to the financial services industry, but I want to cover, maybe in an equity research role, I want to cover consumers because I understand consumers, okay, consumer retail. And so then that's only a single switch, right? You're still staying focused on consumer retail, but you're switching into financial services as your industry, but your function still stays the same, okay? Or you could say you wanted to do marketing for a financial services firm as at least the first step in your pivot, okay? The next thing is that you don't want to choose a job that you wouldn't be able to get, as I mentioned before, and you should make sure that you have clear relationships between your previous experience, your Tuck experience, your intermediate, and your longer-term goals. Okay, so that's a little bit of essay number 1. Now let's talk about essay number 2. So essay number 1 is pretty typical, right? Short and long-term goals, but the big difference is that best fit of you to Tuck and Tuck to you. And you have to answer both parts of that question. It's absolutely essential. In essay number 2, tell us about your most meaningful collaborative leadership experience and what role you played. What did you learn about your own individual strengths and weaknesses through this experience? So there are so many important words in this prompt, right? Collaborative leadership. So it has to be a team-based example, okay? Because if not, it's not collaborative leadership. And then what role did you play? And you don't always have to be the leader. You could be the facilitator. You could be someone who specialized in a certain area. You could be the person who motivated people when everyone else was sort of worn out. What specific role did you play? And then how did you learn about your own strengths and weaknesses? And you have to be, to a certain extent, revealing of your weaknesses here. Now, are you going to give away a weakness, like I can't add 2 plus 2, and then they're going to get very worried that you won't be able to pass finance? No, of course you're not going to do that. But you do have to show that you have strengths, maybe your strengths were communication or team leadership or whatever the case may be, and that you also have weaknesses, things that you could do better. And so with the weaknesses, perhaps you could have planned a little bit earlier, or perhaps you could have divided responsibilities more clearly, or perhaps you could have empowered others on the team to take more action. Okay, those are some examples of very acceptable weaknesses that are to be anticipated by somebody who is applying to business school. Now, that collaborative leadership, I think, is an indication of the unique Tuck culture. Everybody who goes to Tuck is called a Tuckie, and Tuckies are very cooperative, collaborative, and they have to be because there's only 300 or so of them. They're in this small town. Everybody knows everybody. It's in the mountains on the border between Vermont and New Hampshire, and so you really need to be collaborative in that sort of an environment, and they do a lot to foster collaboration. And so that's why this question is so important. So think outside the box. Think of a more unique example. If you're a consultant, talking about a consulting project may not be the best example because guess what? every consultant is going to talk about a consulting project. So we really try to help our clients here at Stratus Prep understand how to differentiate themselves, how to come up with that answer that is really, really different and unique. Second, illustrate how your experience relates to the Tuck MBA program. So show how your experience illustrates the values of Tuck. Not directly, don't say, and this illustrates the values of Tuck. Just show, don't tell, and by doing that, you're going to have a really positive experience. You don't want to assume that the example you use needs to be entirely positive, right, because it says meaningful. So it could be something that had both positives and negatives. And also don't forget to dedicate sufficient time. A lot of people get so caught up in telling the story that they don't talk about their own strengths and weaknesses, or they only say 50 or 100 words for that. And that really should be at least about half of the essay. And sort of they're looking for self-awareness here, right? Are you as an individual able to really understand what your strengths and your weaknesses are? Okay. The next essay, the last required essay, describe a circumstance in your life in which you faced adversity, failure, or setback. What actions did you take as a result, and what did you learn from this experience? Okay, so the key thing here is faced adversity, failure, or setback. This does not have to be a failure essay. Okay, this could be you faced an obstacle but you overcame it, or a setback where you were temporarily set back but then moved forward. So they're giving you a broad scope here for this essay question in terms of examples that you can use. They want to know what actions you took, either to overcome the obstacle, to confront the failure, to reverse the setback, and then what did you learn from this experience, which is by far the most important part. Again, here you see Tuck looking to see how self-aware you are. And so what did you learn from this experience? So what should you do and what should you not do? You should let the admissions committees get to know you personally, demonstrate strength and resilience. Okay, that's what this question is there for, because everybody is going to face obstacles and challenges throughout their career. And so, the key thing is that we be able to overcome them, that we demonstrate the strength and resilience to overcome them. And so, we want this to be an example where we, personal examples tend to be better here for essay number 3. We want to demonstrate that we can overcome challenging situations, that we can meet those challenges overall. And then you want to make sure that the takeaways that you have here, the learning experiences that you have here, are things that you could relate to your MBA goals. So you may face similar obstacles, and this should show how you will respond to those similar obstacles. So don't play it safe here, okay? You can't afford to play it safe at Tuck, okay? Nobody's going to get in on their numbers at Tuck. Tuck is too small of a community, and community is too important at Tuck. So you really have to be a little bit revealing of your genuine, interesting, personal story and self, okay? That's absolutely essential. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to, put out there some very negative failure, and in fact, I would ask you not to do that, but we do need to be cognizant of the fact that this is something that they're looking for. Also, you don't want to fail to clearly articulate why this experience was important to you and what you learned from it. The most important thing here, again, is this self-awareness, that you were able to face a challenge and overcome that challenge. That's what's most important here. All right, now with essay number 4, this is an optional essay. Let's think about this. Please provide any additional insight or information that you have not addressed elsewhere that may be helpful in reviewing your application. Now, the key thing here is the next part of the question, e.g., meaning, for example, unusual choice of evaluators, weakness in academic performance, unexplained job gaps or changes, etc. Complete this question only if you feel your candidacy is not fully represented by this application. So Tuck gives you 1,500 words in the first 3 questions, okay? Approximately 1,500 words, because you can even go a little bit over. Now, you don't want to do another 500-word essay here on your photography passion, okay? If you have a passion for photography, you need to weave that in elsewhere on the application, whether it's on the resume or the application itself or in one of the other essays. What they are saying here is, look, we're not going to call you if there is a problem. So if there's a problem, if there's an issue, if there's something on your resume that we may not understand, if there's something in your background that we may not understand, if there's something that we may be concerned about, then basically you should complete it and explain it here. The shorter the answer here, the better. And not having to answer this question would be ideal. But if you have to answer the question, the best thing to do is to answer it, okay, but not go on and on and on. Nobody wants to hear, 25 excuses for why you didn't do well on the GMAT. It should just be 2 to 3 really succinct sentences. As you may have noticed, my grades during my sophomore year were significantly weaker. This was due to the fact that during my sophomore year, my father passed away as a result of lung cancer, and I was traveling home to be with my family each weekend. That's it. No, I hope you will forgive this. No, you're not begging. You're just simply providing information. You are explaining, not excusing. Let them do the excusing. They can come to the conclusions on their own. All you need to do is explain the situation. Okay? So don't overdo it on this essay. It's another mistake that people make. So this is an opportunity, as I said, to explain, not excuse. You want to be concise. You want to demonstrate that you have self-awareness. If you have to, if you had something negative in your background, and so what should you not do? You should not use this as an opportunity to write an extra essay. You also shouldn't use this to draw attention to minor little hiccups on your resume or your transcript. So like if you had an A- in statistics, no one's even going to notice that or care about it, so do not put a lot of extra attention on it. Okay, so before I get into the reapplicant essay, I wanted to address a question that has come up from a number of folks. While I do understand the stress on the campus visit and interview, which, as you probably know if you're on this call and interested in talk, they have an open interview policy, it might not be possible for all applicants not in the U.S. to actually visit the campus. Does it mean that it's not even worth applying? No. If you're a domestic applicant, you really need to visit. You just really do. If you're an international applicant, if you can visit, if you happen to be in the area for business and you're in the U.S. for business and you can take a few days off and fly over, that would be great. But if not, you can apply from abroad, but then what you have to have done is made connections to the Tuck community in some other way than an actual school visit. And so that means you should be reaching out to, for example, leaders of clubs at Tuck. And, basically, this is what we have our Stratus Prep clients do if they're unable to visit from India or China or the Middle East, and we're working with them, and it would just be way too costly for them to come over. So then, we work with them to make sure that they're connecting with and can speak to the Tuck community, the values of the community, people that they've gotten to know in the community, et cetera, et cetera. So, it's great to visit if you can. We strongly, strongly encourage it for Tuck. I don't encourage it for every school because I think at some schools we've pretty much demonstrated that it doesn't matter. At Tuck it matters, and so to the extent that you can, you should visit. But if not, demonstrate that you really know the community well, because that's going to be important. So for reapplicants, how have you strengthened your candidacy since you last applied? Please reflect on how you have grown personally and professionally. So they want to see both personal and professional reflection. So be clear and upfront about reapplying. I'm reapplying because Tuck is my top choice school. They know that you probably could have gotten into other schools. You want to use specific examples. Don't just talk in theory or in code about, I've gotten better at this, I've gotten better at that. Actually show how you've actually gotten better. So use specific examples. Don't write this essay unless you are a reapplicant. Do not try to say what you did poorly in the past application. Let's be positive about this new application. They're not asking you to admit mistakes on your prior application. They're asking, what have you done to change or improve going forward, which is a very legitimate question, but we don't need to take it from the negative perspective of what didn't we have or didn't we do before. Instead, we can just state what we do have now or how we have improved now. You also don't want to reiterate your resume, right? They're going to be able to see your resume, see the job positions that you've held, seen your responsibilities. So you don't want to be reiterating your whole resume in this application. Obviously, if you've gotten a promotion or something like that, you should highlight that in the essay, but please don't just go through your entire resume again. So what is Tuck really looking for? So first, they're looking for a really unique and thorough personal story. They want to understand, who are you personally, professionally, and academically? What drives you and your career ambitions? Because this is a school where the personal and professional really meet. And so they want to understand from a personal perspective what drives you so that they can understand, what your career aspirations are and why. Then they want to know how you are different from everyone else
who is applying, everyone else who has a similar background to you. What would make you a good colleague, and how are you going to change the world? They want to see that you're going to be a collaborative individual who is really going to fit into their community. And for example, outdoor activities are huge at Tuck. So if you have a passion for hiking or skiing, you definitely want to talk about outdoor activities when applying to Tuck, because it's a really big part of the culture there. And how are you going to change the world? Tuck has a renowned healthcare program. So if you're looking at Tuck because of their healthcare program, you obviously want to talk about, I want to come to Tuck, get an MBA focused on healthcare, so that I can, and then talk about how you're going to change the world, whether that is, providing vaccinations to people, in the developing world, or maybe that's going to be opening up your own set of, hospitals or clinics, or maybe it's going to be taking the helm of a health insurance company, whatever the case may be. Maybe it's going to be working in the public sector. Then they want to see that you have a specific and logical reason that you need to get a Tuck MBA next year. So why do you want to go to business school? What skill sets are you missing that you need to fill in over the next 2 years in business school? And why do you need to go next year? Why is this the perfect point in your career to take time away for an MBA? And finally, why is Tuck the ideal school at which to undertake your MBA studies? Okay, and again, emphasizing the culture and the people and the specific particular programs, especially if you're interested in health or general management. Okay, so we also want to show that there is an appreciation for Tuck's educational approach. So highlight Tuck's collaborative approach, its focus on general management, the focus on a traditional full-time 2-year program, and how this approach will really benefit you. Show that you will be an active contributor to the Tuck community. This is essential. Don't overemphasize competitive leadership. Don't show, if you're in banking or finance, you don't want to show that you're a really competitive person, and that's what's made you successful, and you've sort of crushed other people along the way. That's not going to be a positive for Tuck. Focus on supporting and collaborating and cooperating and mentoring. Okay, and you also want to emphasize the New England environment, the fact that it's a small town environment, that it has a lot of outdoor activities. Those are all really critical for Tuck as well. All right, so how do you go about tackling the actual writing? So this is our 5-step methodology at Stratus Prep for how we help our clients produce, really extraordinary essays. Number 1, become introspective. Okay, so focus on your, focus on who you are personally, and as well as professionally and academically, and what sort of the key elements of your story are. Then craft that into an understandable story, an understandable narrative for somebody from the outside. Outline your specific essays, and then sit down to write. And don't worry when you're sitting down to write about length or anything like that, and then edit and revise. So with becoming introspective, it's about finding your core personality, what things really shine in your personality, understand your strengths and achievements, and clearly delineate your career goals in a way that makes sense. Then with crafting your personal story, you want to think about, okay, how can I put a chronology to all of this that ends with I need an MBA from Tuck now? And what are the key themes that you're going to illustrate throughout that are sort of core to who you are? Then outlining the essays, so you want to customize them for Tuck and make sure that you include concrete examples. This is one of the biggest mistakes that people make when applying to Tuck, or really any other school. You want to find your inner voice, your genuine inner voice. One of the challenges that we have is, clients who want to over-edit their essays. And, we never let anybody's essays go in that are not 110%, but they should still sound, both for ethical and for practical reasons, they should still sound like you. You should be writing in your own unique voice. And, do not let anybody over-edit. Okay? First you should edit for ideas, and then you should edit for word choice and style. But, the key thing here is showing the match to Tuck's culture, but not crushing your own individuality. Now, of course, there cannot be grammatical mistakes and things like that, but, if you want to insert a little humor in it that's not offensive to anyone, that's part of your inner voice, and that should be kept, because Tuck really likes to see that you're a real human being, and that you have a personality, and that you would contribute a lot to the class. And so, people whose essays are really over-edited are not successful in getting in. All right. So in short, recognize what the essays are actually asking and make sure that you answer all of the parts of the essay. Know your target, write about what Tuck is uniquely looking for, and then make sure that you budget enough time for outlining, writing, and editing. If you are interested in working with Stratus Prep, of course, we would be more than happy to work with you on Tuck or any other school. We are experts at HBS, Wharton, Stanford, as well as Columbia and NYU here in New York. And you can have a 30-minute consultation with us. Now, we're not going to be able to solve all of your problems in 30 minutes. What I can do in the 30-minute consultation is put together a plan of how you and us working together could result in a really positive outcome for you. You can give us a call at 212-307-1788. Again, that's 212-307-1788 to go ahead and schedule a consultation, or you can email us at consult@stratusprep.com, and I'd be more than happy to sit with you and discuss how the Stratus Prep team could increase your chances of getting into Tuck, where over 70% of the students who've applied with our help have been admitted. Great. So now I'm going to take some questions. And so the first question that I have here is, can you discuss leveraging military service in your application? Absolutely. So military service is obviously a very unique and special and valuable form of leadership. And so I would really, try to focus on the concepts of leadership and service. The cultural aspects of Tuck are very different from the culture of the military. And so you definitely want to be sure to show that you have a compatibility with Tuck's culture, but yet you would bring this uniquely valuable experience in, in leadership, in managing a team under stress, under pressure, in working in service to goals that go beyond simply meeting financial goals. All of those are critically important to Tuck, and the military can be a great way to illustrate them. Wonderful. Is a 600 GMAT score something that needs to be explained? How would you address that in the essay? So I don't know all about your profile, but a 600 GMAT is quite low for Tuck. Now, Tuck is not like Wharton or Columbia or MIT, where the GMAT is the most important factor. We have had numerous students admitted to Tuck with GMATs in the 600s. At the same time, we have to be cognizant of the fact that 600 even is quite low, especially, now I don't know your background, but especially if you're a male, because there's a bit of a higher bar for males because more of them apply. And so what I would argue is, rather than explaining it, you should retake the GMAT and get a better score. But if you're going to apply with that score, then yes, you should explain it, although unless you have some real tangible reasons for explaining it, that could be challenging. So, you could explain it, for example, by talking about how standardized tests in the past, like the SAT or the ACT, have not traditionally measured accurately your potential, and as demonstrated by a much higher college GPA. That would be one way to explain it. You don't want to say, I just got anxious on test day, or I have test anxiety, because you know what, you're going to take a lot of tests to Tuck, and you need to be able to perform under pressure. So, I would focus on, if you can't retake it or you won't retake it, then I would focus on trying to explain how standardized tests, maybe you're not a native English speaker, and so that could have caused, it, because maybe you struggled with the reading and it took you longer, or, maybe you, maybe you had, particular circumstances during your test administration, although in that case you should have retaken it. So it's hard to find that balance where you give a good explanation. Probably the best one would be that standardized tests have just traditionally underestimated your potential, because if it's an excuse that could have been overcome by a retake, they're going to expect a retake. All right, so let me just see here what we have in terms of additional questions. Okay. Does Tuck look favorably upon older applicants? So I would sort of put Tuck in the middle category here. They are agnostic to older candidates. So they're fine with older candidates. They admit some older candidates every year, but they're not as focused on older candidates as, like, say, a Booth would be. but they're not part of this trend sort of led by Harvard and Stanford towards 2 to 3 years of work experience and then go get an MBA. So they're sort of in that middle category. They're not encouraging younger. They don't think more experience is always better in the way that Booth almost does, but they instead they are open to it depending on what your story is and if that story makes sense and how you play it out and everything like that. Would there be any specific things you should mention if you are from a finance background, i.e. why are you applying to a general management program and not to a finance program? Well, I mean, I think that's going to depend a lot on your career goals. So if you're saying that you're going to stay in finance, then I wouldn't apply to Tuck because it's not going to be a good fit for you. But theoretically, if you're applying to Tuck, it's because you want, if you wanted to, stay in finance, you would probably go to Columbia or NYU or Wharton or HBS or Stanford or Booth. You probably wouldn't be applying to Tuck. And so, if you are planning on going back to finance, then I think we need to evaluate if Tuck is the right school for you. If you're not planning on going back to finance, then theoretically you're doing something else, hopefully, something entrepreneurial or something innovative. And then I would talk about, I need the general management skills because all I have for my background are the finance skills, and I know that, it's going to take a little bit more than that to be successful as an entrepreneur or a general manager or an executive. So I need to understand more about marketing and operations and people leadership, and that's why I'm striving to come to Tuck. All right, the next question is about the Tuck visit. Would it still be worth visiting if you can only do so after applying? Also, how is your assessment of the chances in the second round versus the first round of the applications? Okay, so it's fine to visit after you've applied as long as you do so in the first week or two after you've applied because they will not have made any decisions on any applicants at that point. In terms of first round versus second rounds, I think Tuck is one of those schools where, there is definitely a benefit to applying in first round because they like to see people who are really dedicated to and determined to attend their community. But it's not like a Stanford or an MIT where the difference between first round and second round is enormous. It's just, it would be preferable to do round one, but if you could improve your GMAT score, if that's your weakness, or if you're going to get promoted in the, in November, then you may want to do round two. For the additional essay, would you suggest to clarify on the circumstances leading to 3 different roles at work in a span of 3 years? I actually would not. I would have your recommenders explain that. If it's been all at the same job, then why not have the recommenders do the explaining, which will seem more credible anyway, rather than you doing the explaining. I really don't like using that additional space. I really, unless we absolutely have to, I really think it sort of puts a black mark on your application. How important are the grades obtained in quantitative subjects during college? Well, all of your college grades are important to a certain extent, but, if you had B pluses in finance or statistics or accounting or macroeconomics, nobody's going to spaz out. Now, if you had C's, D's, and F's, they may be concerned, okay? But they're going to first look at it high level, what's the overall GPA? And then if they dig in, then they may see, these lower grades in quantitative subjects. Depending on when you're applying, one of the things that you can do, here is that you can take let's say you're applying around 2, you could take a course at your local community college or online. UC Berkeley, UCLA have some great online programs. Take a course in like finance or accounting or statistics and demonstrate that your quantitative performance and capacity today is much stronger than it was in the past. That could be a great way to handle that. All right. Thanks, Shawn, for the great tips. I had a question about the failure essay. Does the failure have to be professional or can it be personal? I think it can be personal, and I really like it to be personal. All right. I find that, failures that are personal are really some of the best possible failures. And the reason for that is that there's not as much risk involved with personal failures, right? With professional failures, if you show that, something went really poorly in a professional setting, that could reflect quite negatively on your application to business school. Whereas if the obstacle or the failure was something more personal, it's less likely to have those negative implications. All right, for the optional essay, does a weak undergraduate record merit answering it? well, it depends. If there's an explanation for that weak academic record in undergrad, then absolutely, you should explain it. But if there's no explanation and you just had poor grades, you don't want to hem and haw if you don't have legitimate things to say. So if there were financial pressures and you had to work a job, that's legitimate. If you or someone in your family was sick and that impacted your performance, that's legitimate to talk about. But you can't just say in general, this is where I am in general. I'm not, I didn't do well for these reasons because I fooled off and I didn't pay attention during class and I was more interested in partying as an undergrad. Those things are not going to work. They're not going to be acceptable. Okay. For those who want to switch both industries and functions, what is the safest way of highlighting this without raising any red flags in the essay? Well, what I would do is I would show that you're going to do this in an incremental fashion. So you'll do either the industry or the function first as a short-term goal, and then you'll do the other, either the function or the industry, whichever you haven't switched, as a longer-term goal. There's no way to sort of hide the fact that you're trying to change both function and industry. So if you say, I'm going to change both function and industry, you say I'm going to go from, consumer marketing to operations in the automobile space, that there's no way of hiding the fact that that's a double switch and that's going to raise some concerns. So what I would do is stage it and maybe do marketing for the car company and then switch to operations. How important is a recommendation from a current supervisor? So recommendations from current supervisors are really, really important. And if you're going to explain why you don't have one, this is not a legitimate excuse. My bonus could be impacted, my job could be impacted, and so I didn't want to get my current supervisor. You're going to have to come up with something better than that, because if you really want to go to Tuck and you really want to get an MBA and you really want your entire life to be changed forever by this extraordinary experience, why are you worrying about your bonus or this particular job or this particular, situation? So don't use that as a reason. Now, if you have a relatively new supervisor, you could use that as a reason, but you can't use the they might fire me or they might not pay me as much if I, if I let them know that I'm applying. Okay. Is there a difference between working for some company or your own business in the eyes of the Tuck Admissions Committee? No, I mean, Tuck, like every other school, is really passionate about entrepreneurship. And so, I think that it's really important to, demonstrate your passion for entrepreneurship if that's something that you're interested in. And obviously, there's tons of general management challenges that come up when you are a entrepreneur, because you have to handle everything yourself. So I don't think there's any preference either way. I think entrepreneurship is a very powerful story right now at most schools, and so you may want to consider that. Then somebody asked, would attending one of Tuck's road events, Tuck on the Road, be a reasonable substitute for visiting, or wouldn't you even mention if you attended? Well, they'll know if you attended or not because they keep track of these things. So that's not something that you have to worry about. But I do not think that this is a good enough replacement for visiting the campus. Because when you visit the campus, Tuck on the Road, it's going to be the admissions people and things like that, and they don't do a ton of them. When you go visit, you're going to get to meet lots of students, really understand the culture on campus, everything like that. So I think that it's great to go to the Tuck on the Road series, but it's also great to do a campus visit. The more touch points that you have with Tuck and the students at Tuck, etc., the better off you're going to be. Can challenging personal factors influencing my early adulthood be the central theme of all 3 essays? I would never have one thing be the central theme of all 3 essays. Okay. Plus, that sounds really early in your life. And some of the essays should be personal, but some of them should be professional. And I wouldn't have one theme alone, try to tie all 3 essays together. I think that could be very, very dangerous. They're looking for a diversity of responses. That's why they asked 3 different questions. Okay. So another question. On your website, you speak very clearly on admissions rates for HBS, CBS, etc. What is your rate of success at Tuck? It is 70+%. And the way that we calculate success rates at Tuck and everywhere else is in the denominator is every candidate that we have worked with since we opened Stratus Prep in 2006, and in the numerator is every student who has been admitted to that school. So it's a very simple calculation. The number of Stratus Prep students admitted divided by the number of Stratus Prep students who applied to any given school. Great. Well, I have really appreciated your questions today. And as I mentioned earlier, if you'd like to do a consultation, we would be more than happy to speak with you about working with Stratus Prep. It's always a pleasure to be here with our friends at Beat the GMAT. You can give us a call at 212-307-1788, or you can schedule a meeting at consult@stratusprep.com. And I would invite you also to join the chat party that's going on right now on the Tuck wall on Beat the GMAT. So definitely check that out. I'll be trying to poke my head in there later today to answer any questions that come up that didn't get in here. Oh, there's another question. So what are some common red flags to avoid in the Tuck essays? So first of all, the most important thing to avoid in the Tuck essays is that the essays sound like something that is from another school. So you really need to show a very specific passion for Tuck. And if you can't show that passion for Tuck and really understanding of their culture, which comes from the class visit and which comes from sort of your contact with the school and with current students and alumni, if you can't show that and you sort of just give generic answers, this is my short-term goal, this is my long-term goal, oh, I found this one program online, let me talk about that. If you're going to do that, that is going to be a red flag to them. Okay? Another thing is showing yourself as too competitive. That's going to be a red flag to them. Another thing is showing that you don't have clear short and long-term goals, because then they're like, how are we going to place this person in terms of employment? So those are some red flags to avoid in terms of the Tuck essays. Okay. So I think that brings us to the end of our time together. I want to thank all of my friends here at Beat the GMAT. It's always such a pleasure to be with you, and I'm glad that so many of you were able to join us today. So remember my 3 tips for Tuck. Recognize what the essays are actually asking, okay, and a lot of them have multiple parts. Make sure you address all 3 parts. Know your target, know the culture of Tuck and what makes a Tuckie and what they are looking for, and then budget enough time for outlining, writing, and editing. And of course, if you'd like the help of a strong team of well-trained experts, please give us a call here at 212-307-1788 or consult@stratusprep.com. Thanks, and have a good day.